The wind howled through the narrow streets of Cleveland, Ohio, as Sarah Thompson clutched her thin coat around her trembling frame. The gray clouds hung low, mirroring the heaviness in her heart. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, and the last few dollars in her wallet had vanished on rent. Her small apartment was cold. The power company had already sent its final warning, and the cupboards were bare except for a half loaf of bread, 1 can of soup, and a bottle of water. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it. She had gotten used to that feeling lately. Sarah once dreamed of becoming a nurse, of saving lives, and making her mother proud. But life, with all its cruelty, had other plans. When her mother died from a sudden stroke 2 years ago, Sarah's world collapsed. She lost her job, then her savings, and soon after, her hope. Now, she spent her days searching for odd jobs, cleaning offices, babysitting, even handing out flyers, anything to keep a roof over her head. That morning, as she heated her last can of soup, she whispered a quiet prayer. God, I don't know how much longer I can do this. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, miracles, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your small act of support helps us spread stories that remind the world there's still goodness left in it. Sarah carried her bowl of soup to the small table near the window, trying not to think about tomorrow. But then, through the fogged-up glass, she saw him, a man sitting on the icy sidewalk, his clothes tattered, his beard thick and unkempt. He was holding a cardboard sign that simply read, "Hungry, please help." Something inside her stirred. Maybe it was pity, maybe empathy, maybe the ghost of her mother's voice saying, "Sarah, no one ever went poor by giving." Her hand froze halfway to her mouth. That soup was all she had, all, yet she couldn't stop staring at the man. His lips were blue from the cold, his fingers shaking. The weight of her own hunger battled with the weight of compassion. She sighed, stood up, wrapped the soup carefully in a towel, and stepped outside. The wind bit her face as she walked toward him. When she handed him the warm bowl, the man looked up, his eyes glassy but alive. "Ma'am," he croaked. "Are you sure?" Sarah smiled weakly. "Eat it before it gets cold." Then she turned away before he could see the tears in her eyes. That night, her stomach twisted painfully, but her heart felt strangely light. She crawled under the thin blanket, whispering, "Lord, please just get me through tomorrow." When morning came, the knocking on her door startled her awake. For a moment, she feared it was the landlord demanding rent again. But when she opened the door, a man in a dark blue jacket stood there, holding a paper bag. He introduced himself as Daniel Roberts, a volunteer from a local outreach program. "We're checking in on residents in the area," he said. "We heard you've been struggling. Someone reported that you might need assistance." Sarah blinked, confused. No one knew her situation. She barely spoke to neighbors. Before she could respond, he handed her the bag. Inside were groceries, bread, milk, canned goods, even some fruit. "It's just a small care package," Daniel said gently. "There's more where that came from. We also have job listings and assistance programs if you'd like to talk." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "I don't know who told you about me," Daniel smiled. "Someone who didn't want to be named. Said you were kind to him when no one else was." The words hit her like lightning. Could it be the homeless man from yesterday? She had given him soup. That was all. She hadn't even asked his name. She stood there speechless as Daniel gave her a flyer about a local community center offering free job counseling. She thanked him repeatedly, holding the groceries like treasure. After he left, she sat on the floor, tears streaming down her cheeks. That simple act, her last meal, had somehow come back multiplied. Later that week, Sarah visited the community center. She was nervous but determined. A kind woman named Linda helped her write a new resume and guided her toward a job opening at St. Mary's Hospital, the same hospital she used to dream of working in. "They're hiring assistants," Linda said. "It's not nursing yet, but it's a step." Sarah applied, prayed, and waited. Days passed, then a week. Each night she whispered the same prayer. "God, if you can hear me, please give me one more chance." Then, one chilly afternoon, her phone buzzed. "This is St. Mary's Hospital," the voice said. "Sarah Thompson, we'd like to offer you the position." Sarah dropped to her knees right there in her kitchen. It felt unreal. She had a job, a real one. The hospital was even within walking distance. The pay wasn't much, but it meant food, stability, and hope. When she started work, she threw herself into every task: cleaning patient rooms, delivering meals, assisting nurses. The hospital halls felt sacred, a place where she could finally breathe again. One evening, as she was restocking supplies, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Excuse me, miss." She turned and froze. It was him, the homeless man from that day. He looked different now, clean-shaven, wearing a visitor's badge, holding a small bouquet of flowers. "You probably don't remember me," he said with a faint smile, "but I remember you. You gave me soup when no one else would." Her eyes widened. You're the one," he nodded. "My name's Michael. That day, I was ready to give up. I'd lost everything, my job, my home, my dignity. But your kindness reminded me that there's still light in this world. After you left, I went to a shelter. They helped me get back on my feet. And when I found work again, I told them about you. I asked them to check if you needed help. That's how they found you." Sarah couldn't speak. Tears rolled down her cheeks as he placed the flowers in her hands. "You saved my life that day," Michael said quietly, "and I just wanted to say thank you." Weeks passed, and life began to look brighter for both of them. Sarah continued working hard, and soon the hospital offered to sponsor her nursing certification courses. Michael volunteered at the same community center that had helped them both. They often met for coffee, after work, sharing stories, laughter, and gratitude. Each time they talked, Sarah realized how one act of kindness had rippled outward, changing two lives forever. Then one spring afternoon, the hospital received a donation, a large sum intended to expand its community outreach wing. When Sarah saw the announcement board, she was stunned to read the name, the Michael Grant Foundation for Second Chances. Her heart swelled. Michael had turned his struggle into purpose, using part of his savings and donations to help others find their way. That day, when he visited her at the hospital, she hugged him tightly. "You really are a miracle," she whispered. He smiled. "No, Sarah. The miracle was you." But life still had one more surprise in store. Months later, Sarah was promoted to a full-time nursing assistant. Her paycheck now covered all her bills. And her apartment, once cold and dim, was now warm, filled with fresh flowers and light. She started volunteering on weekends, helping distribute food to the homeless. One evening, as she ladled soup into a bowl for a shivering woman, she paused. It was the same soup she'd once given away, the same act repeating in another circle of grace. Sarah realized then that miracles weren't loud or grand. They didn't always come with flashing signs or sudden fortune. Sometimes they began quietly with a simple act of giving when you have almost nothing left. The soup she once saw as her last meal had become the seed of 1,000 blessings. Before we close this story, if you believe in hope, grace, and the power of one good deed, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us keep telling real, emotional stories that touch the soul. And now, before you go, please comment below. I believe in miracles if this story moved you today. That night, as Sarah sat by her window once more, she looked at the city lights below and whispered softly, "Thank you." The wind was still cold, but she didn't feel it anymore. Her heart was full. Somewhere out there, someone else was being fed, someone else was being helped. And it all began because one hungry woman gave her last meal away. Sometimes, when you give everything you have left, that's when heaven gives back more than you ever imagined.